Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Players Zone YouTube channel and welcome to our Premier League predictions for match week 3. After a mammoth match week, game week 2, a lot of exciting games there. Not as many, major talking points or upsets, but this weekend we've got some massive games to look forward to. Obviously, the Northwest Derby, the first bold classic, as I'm going to coin it. Everton takes on Arnie's slot on Sunday. Also, Man City travel to West Ham, this newly rejuvenated West Ham. Also on Sunday, Crystal Palace going to Chelsea, an all-London affair there as well. Brighton and go to Aston to start the week off. So it's a lot of exciting games. I think this weekend we could be in store for a few upsets as well. So it's going to make the predictions a little bit harder. With that all being said, though, I'm really excited for the weekend to get underway. Looking at last week and our points we got, we came into last week on 5 points, so really struggled the opening match week, but added 8 last week, so much more improved. That's the standard we want to be at. Obviously got a perfect scoreline in there as well, the Fulham Leicester game, so very happy with that. Now we go to 13 points for our prediction points on the Premier League this season, and I know these videos are getting a lot of views. I appreciate that. If you're new to the channel and you're wondering how this point system works, it's 3 points for the correct scoreline, 1 point for the correct result predicted, and obviously 0 for neither. So keep track of how you think I'm going, you're going in the comment section down below. Love the interaction. Let me know your thoughts on my prediction in the comment section. With that all being said, ladies and gents, let's get straight now into these Premier League predictions. We start the weekend in London as Arsenal host Brighton and Hove Albion. Both teams yet to drop any points. Both teams perfect to start the season off. And it's going to be a really intriguing game, this one here. Obviously, Arsenal getting the job done versus Aston Villa, 2-0. The Raya save was the big talking point, the big moment. But despite how it appeared, I think Arsenal really put in a really good shift versus Aston Villa. It was a mental hurdle, an obstacle to get past after Aston Villa did the double over Arsenal last season, but they've got a really important win on the road to start the season off. It's now 2 wins from 2 without playing fantastic football, but we're seeing their ability to just defend. You know, this backline, so much props and praise being given to it, but you're seeing it in real time. Raya making that fantastic save from Ollie Watkins, Saliba and Gabriel continue to show why they're probably one of the best partnerships in the world right now. And you know what, despite that midfield not being great going forward, they're covering off defensively really well. They're not conceding many opportunities and they're taking the ones they get going forward as well. Thomas Partey and Leandro Trossard both scoring in that game there. I can see this being a formula going forward. I think they weren't really convincing the first match week, and I think it might be quite similar here versus Brighton. They seem to be a really uncomfortable team to play with that way. Fabian Hertz, though, uses the wide areas and uses the pace and the flanks. So I think for Arsenal this game here, I'm looking at that midfield. Can they get in control of this game? Can they boss it around? Because you look at the names, Thomas Partey alongside Declan Rice and Martin Odegaard, it's a real strong Premier League experience, dominating midfield. If you can get control and win this battle versus like a James Milner, Billy Gilmore, and it looks like Jorginho Ruto might get a start, or João Pedro in the number 10 there. Like, you can see the differences in quality and the differences in the ability to dictate the game. So if they can dominate the centre of the park, similar to how Liverpool have this season, I feel like they can get a good run on here and really get the better of Brighton. Obviously, they got a fantastic 2-1 win versus Manchester United. Same time slot last weekend, and that high line really caused Man United problems. I see it could be a different story versus Arsenal, but if they try and employ that high line, it might just catch Arsenal out here a little bit. I think got to press them hard up the pitch to start the game off, still play with that energy, intensity, and don't change your style of football because you're going up against Arsenal on the road. I feel like for Brighton, it's keep enforcing this attacking, progressive, energetic style of football. It might not come off you, but I feel like there will be development to come from this game here. I can't see Brighton doing much in this game. Obviously, it comes from the flanks. Minter and Mitoma, the keys for them. But I think Arsenal are just too good in this game. I think they'll continue their good form. I've got them winning this game quite comfortably, 3-0. I think Odegaard a massive performance. We know Bukayo Saka's going to give you solid performance. And I feel like another big game here coming from Kai Havertz, and Arsenal get over the line for me. We stay in London for our next game. Brentford hosts Southampton. Two teams that really struggled last weekend. Starting with Brentford, obviously you go to Anfield. Arnie Slot's first game at Anfield, a really difficult fixture, and Liverpool are firing. So I'm not going to be too harsh to them. Only managed to concede 2 goals. Mark Flecken was fantastic in the net. But you look back to match week 1, how they played against Crystal Palace. They got that fantastic victory there. I feel like that will be the formula for them going forward this season. That home form, dominating at home, making it difficult for teams to play at home. And it's interesting this game here because Brentford don't really like to play on the front foot, but they might have to at home versus the Southampton side. They'll also be very open at the back, but it might just help them out because I find for Brentford, the weakness they have is the ability to break down sides and create a plethora of chances. over and over and over again. And that midfield doesn't have that real creativity to do that spark. But you look at Burnley, look at Vista, Kevin Schade. These are the players, you need to get the ball to them as much as possible. And I think with Southampton and the way they're so stretched at times under Russell Martin, so exposed, there's a good chance for Brentford to show how they can play with the ball at their feet and how they can get outside. So I feel like start the game strong. I think the first goal in this game will be massive. You saw Southampton really struggle versus Nottingham Forest, but again, they had a lot of the ball. So it might be a case of Southampton have a lot of the ball on the road here and Brentford try to neutralise that counter-attack, which they do so well. Alternatively, Southampton try to sit in and be more compact and limit Brentford's opportunities to go and score goals and hope they eventually come stretched to then go and pounce and score at the other end. I think both teams have talent in the final third. It's just if they can find it there. Both work in progress. I think Southampton are just not good enough at the moment for me. Brentford at home, Thomas Frank in charge, and Burnley and Vista up top. I'm backing them in. 2-0. I can see they're winning this game. Southampton continuing to struggle. I think that leakiness of the back's going to come to hurt them coming down to this Premier League season. We move up north to Merseyside. It's Everton and Bournemouth for our next game. And I can see they're only going one way. Everton really, really poor this season. Looking like the worst team in the division at this current point in time. Got smacked up 4-0 by Tottenham. They got 3-0 in the opening match week as well by a really exciting Brighton side. And at the moment, their identity was defence, and they've got no confidence, no form at the back. Your Tarkowskis, your Pickfords, they look so far off it. And the spine for me is really, really lacking. You look at Timo Benham, really poor versus Tottenham. Just Gay was poor. Dominic Calvert-Lewin's had a lack of service, but he's been very, very quiet as well. And at the back, Tarkowski, Pickford, it's just not looking good enough for me. They've got to lift their performance. They've got to be better. And I think if Sean Dyche loses again on the weekend, he could be looking at the exit door really, really early in this season here because it's looking very dire for Everton. I can't see them signing any players. They lack the quality. They lack the talent. The McNeils and the Jack Harrisons for the flanks who were playing so well to start last season have not been good since the opening 10 games of last year. Doucouré is a shadow of himself. It looks really flat. It lacks creativity. You look at Bournemouth. They took it to Newcastle. Should have won. Was robbed against Newcastle in many regards. But they own moments. Iriola's got his side set up to boss key areas. They can win key 15-minute periods of games. And that's how they get on top of teams with overwhelming pressure. And I feel like they'll do this in this game here. Start strong, start early, enjoy some of the early pressure. Cook and Christie in midfield, that control, that balance in midfield. Then you got Semenyo, Kluivert and Tavernier behind Evan Nilsson. I think they'll just tear this Everton side apart. They lack a lot of confidence by Everton. Bournemouth are flourishing. They're going to get better and better as the season goes on. And Andoni Iraola has made this side really, really ruthless. As I said, when they get their opportunities, when they get on top of games, they normally pounce. And they're really unlucky that that second goal didn't count versus Newcastle. They showed Newcastle up. They bossed the majority of the game. They had a few little lull moments, and luckily enough for Newcastle, they got that goal in the end. But I can see Bournemouth dominating this game here. I've got a 4-1 Bournemouth win going. Away from home, it sounds ridiculous, but right now Everton for me are so, so poor. And I think they concede a lot more goals in this game here. Our next games is Ipswich and Fulham face off. It's a really intriguing battle. Ipswich yet to get any points in the Premier League so far this season, but talk about a tough start. You got Liverpool at home, and then you got Man City away. They did really, really well, I think, versus Man City to start that game off. Sammy Smodic's getting on the score sheet, but they're just victim to Man City being in Man City type form and killing the game off in 15 minutes. But we've seen some positive sides in patches from Ipswich. I think it fills me a lot of confidence. Probably the most impressive side coming up to the Premier League this season. They've had really key moments in key games where they've gotten on top of the games. And I think, look back to match week 1, the first 45 minutes there, they'll want to have something very similar here versus Fulham. But against a Fulham side, you got to keep the pressure on because, again, a Fulham side, if they get a few chances, they get out on the break, that's going to look at their best. So you can't really drop off. And I think for Ipswich, I like to play the progressive, I like to get players forward and play on the halfway line, but you've got to be careful because this Fulham side with Smith Rowe, Muniz, Andreas Pereira, these three players are really, really key in their win versus Leicester, and I feel like they'll be a key yet again in this game here. I think there's a fine balance at Ipswich here. Do you go after the game and try and win it versus trying to manage the game and maybe nick a tight, hard-fought win or take a point from this game here? Because Fulham are really, really strong. Sander Berge will likely start in midfield alongside Andreas Pereira. Muniz more involved last weekend and much more improved. You've got Smith Rowe in there. Anderson and Bassey is one of the better combinations in the league now. You got Tete and Robbins who are in fantastic form, Bernd Leno. On paper, it went from being a really average team for them to adding a lot of talent and players performing in their positions, and it's looking really, really good for the side. So I'm impressed with Fulham. They've got a good win over Leicester 2-1 on the weekend. Again, a team that just managed to own moments, similar to Bournemouth. When they get their opportunities, they normally take them. And unlike match day 1 versus Manchester United, they were quite clinical in front of goal. I think Muniz is due here for another massive game here. Smith Rowe continues to impress. I feel like they're going to be really, really dangerous, especially on the break. I can see Ipswich taking a lot of the ball, but Fulham beating them on the break in this game here. As such, I've got a 2-1 win for Fulham. I think if Ipswich are to get anything from this game, it's going to be Sam Morsey alongside Massimo Luongo in midfield. Can these guys control the pace of the game, control the tempo, and not allow Fulham to get on the counter-attack? If they can do that, I can see Ipswich having an avenue to win this game or get a point. But as it currently is set up, I think Fulham get the 2-1 win for me. We're in the Midlands for our next game. Leicester take on Aston Villa in what could be a really one-sided affair if they're not careful here. Leicester City outplayed in both their opening 2 games. Lucky to get a point versus Spurs due to their poor finishing in front of goal in match week 1. Second best versus Fulham. Yes, they had some moments, but again, I still see a lack of quality in the final third, a lack of incisiveness and an ability to break a side apart. You get a lucky without-face goal to get you on the scoreboard there, but it just wasn't good enough for me. And I'm still wondering what Steve Cooper can do with this side. It really looks midfield strong, defense good enough, but you need something more in the final third. There can't just be Jamie Vardy, relying on Fatoui to create something out of nothing, or Bobby De Cordova is an interesting get, but he's not going to really add anything. There's no spark or X factor in the final third. And I think in a game versus Aston Villa, you want to rely on the James Justins, Vestergaards at the back to be really solid and strong and deny chances. But when you get that odd chance on the counter-attack to try and get at Aston Villa and try and exploit them in the counter-attack, or if they make a mistake in midfield or defence, do you really have a player that can finish that chance off? Vardy's that guy, but the legs are going. He's a guy that will be having moments, can probably play 65 minutes at a max. What happens after that? I think that's where I'm really worried for Leicester here. They're going to have to be really, really solid in terms of defensively, working hard, keeping their shape. I think a lot of pressure on that midfield. Can Buonanotte drop in a little bit deeper? Assist like Harry Winks in midfield, because they're going to have to do a lot of defending. I think Aston Villa, I still think one of the best fluid midfield moving teams. They've got a lot of danger up top. Ollie Watkins, Leon Bailey have been a shadow of their last season self. Could they spark to life in this game here? Morgan Rogers has been the player that stood out in the Premier League so far this season as one of the most dangerous, continuing his great form from the end of last season. So I think for Aston Villa, on the back of a really disappointing 2-0 loss to Arsenal, they want to bounce back. Unai Emery's side want to get back into the swing of things, and I think they can get the better of really underwhelming to the Leicester side. I think a Leicester side that lacks a bit of a cutting edge and ability to really get at sides, and that's such to be one-way traffic. And I think at the end of the day, Aston Villa will well and truly control and boss this game, especially in the middle of the park. Villa win this game 3-0 for me. I think too much talent, too much quality, and the need to bounce back. They'll get it done quite easily versus Leicester City. Our final game on Saturday sees Nottingham Forest take on Wolves. And you know what? I'm really impressed Nottingham Forest start the season off, and I'm really excited for this game here. It's going to be entertaining. Both teams like to go at it, like to attack well. Wolves really, really dodge at the back. We've talked about them in a little bit. But look at Nottingham Forest, a really solid start to the season. A point versus Bournemouth at home. A massive 3 points on the road versus Southampton. Really exciting attacking football. We're seeing the best in Chris Wood, Anthony Elanga, Hudson-Odoi, and Morgan Gibbs-White. That is the heart and soul of this Nottingham Forest team. And yes, they love to play on the break, but I saw a bit more in terms of in the half set. Once they're in the opposition's half, I saw a bit more of passages and movements and ability to break down the side. And it's really, really exciting to see because, yes, we know they are probably one of the better teams in the Premier League off the turnover, on the break, trying to get outsides with the pace they've got in wide areas. But despite not having a lot of possession versus Southampton, they still showed signs and are able to break down a side sitting in their own half. So really, really impressed in that regard. Wolves are leaky at the back. We saw they conceded 6 against Chelsea. They conceded 2 goals versus Arsenal. You got a -6 goal difference. They look dangerous going forward, but they're so weak at the back. So I think, once again, I can see like Anthony Elanga, a player like that, having a real breakout game here to start the season off and getting at this Wolves side, because the defence is a lot of new faces, a lot of inexperienced faces, and looking very vulnerable right now despite all the coaching of Gary O'Neill. When you look at Wolves, it's funny because they could have gotten some points in the opening 2 games of the season versus both Arsenal and Chelsea. But once again, the defence is really, really leaky. It's conceding a lot of chances, and maybe Gary O'Neill has to just sacrifice that and continue to go and attack, because on the weekend versus Chelsea, that first half could have been 3-3, maybe 3-2 to Wolves, the way how many chances they created. how the ball moves so silky from end to end, but it creates a real back and forth sort of table tennis type game. It's just you go, I go, you go, I go. And as such, they're really vulnerable to conceding chances and goals. I think from this game here, I want to see a bit more control in the middle of the park. I look at João Gomez, Lamina, and then Mateus Cunha at the number 10 position. That central cog, can they start to tick? Can they start to be a little bit more forceful midfield and win the ball back? And can you get this back five to really shore up defensively? Get a bit of grunt and real anger about you and make it a little bit more ugly, because it's becoming too easy to transition from the opposition's defence to their forward line and through that back five. So I think for Wolves, get a bit ugly in this game here. Fight a bit harder, because Nottingham Forest, when they get going, they get playing at pace and get in open space, it's lights out for the opposition. And I think for Wolves, it's all about making it a real ugly scrap. For Nottingham Forest, I think I've been impressed with them defensively. They've kept an important clean sheet away to Southampton, didn't give them much easy chances. So that's Murillo and Milenkovic once again. If these guys can shore up the back, I think this front line will continue to do its thing. It'll score 2 or 3 goals most weekends because of how exciting and attacking they can be. It's just if this back four can continue to hold up. Elliot Anderson's looking fantastic in that midfield there, so it's really, really exciting to see. With that being said, Forest at home, with the quality they've got and how leaky Wolves have been right now, I've got Nottingham Forest 3-1 win, and they get over the line here versus a really defensively weak Wolves side. To start off a mammoth Sunday of fixtures, it's West Ham and Manchester City. And boy, this one's going to be exciting. West Ham got their first win of the season on the road to Crystal Palace. But yet again, it wasn't really convincing. I'm still to see the best of West Ham under Julian Lopetegui. There were signs over there. I think Thomas Soucek's had a fantastic start to the season. And Rodriguez in that midfield as well has been fabulous. I think these two, alongside Lucas Paquetá, are going to have to be really, really tight. They're going to have to really congest that centre of the park and limit Man City from just walking it through. Because right now, City are looking at their sparkling best. I think for West Ham, the ups and downs and momentum shifts they're having in games, they can't have that versus Man City. We saw on the weekend previous, just give them 10 to 15 minutes, they can score 3 or 4 past you. So for West Ham, it's being consistent throughout the game, starting strong and remaining at a sort of 7, 8 out of 10 if you can, because if they're going to get anything out of this game, they're going to get the crowd behind them, they're going to make it tough for Man City. They can't have any small drop-off, because right now Kevin De Bruyne, Savinho, likes of Bernardo Silva, Erling Haaland, they're just getting the better of sides because of you have a little drop-off, they're at the races. They're playing at 9, 10 out of 10 for most of the games so far this season. They really got to Ipswich in a little moment of madness for them. So for West Ham, stay solid for longer periods. Lopetegui's sides are sort of designed and set up for these type of games to sit in deep, to absorb pressure and counter-attack, and that's what West Ham's identity has been for the last 2 to 3 years. So it sort of suits them, but how long can they sit in and defend versus the Man City side? They've got the talent there. Todibo, Max Kilman had a fantastic game last time out. I was talking about how good Rodriguez has been. You've got the depth on the bench there with Edson Alvarez as well. Obviously you've got Thomas Soucek in career best form right now as well. So there's opportunity there. But to stop Man City, to stop Haaland, and to stop the likes of Kevin De Bruyne and Bernardo Silva and Rodri is just too much at times. And I think in this game here, for me, it's simply going to be the wingers yet again. Savinho and Doku. They're just going to tear it up. I think West Ham, despite how deep they'll see it, and the Wan-Bissaka and how good he is one-on-one and the like of that, they've just got too much for me. These wingers right now for Man City are going to tear the league up, and each week look like, for me, the game changes. They might not get the stats and the numbers that Haaland and De Bruyne might get, but right now they're the two that are making the difference. I think it'll be a very similar game to what we saw last time for Man City. I think West Ham might score first, but City will just click in the gear and smack them about. I've got City winning this game 4-1. Haaland, De Bruyne, Savinho, and also Doku for me. I'm just going to tear this game apart and City cruise it in the end. It's an all-London battle in our next game, Chelsea and Crystal Palace. Another really exciting game we've got in our hands here. Maresca's side finally clicking last week, a 6-2 win over Wolves. But I think we can't get too far ahead of ourselves. They still conceded a lot of chances and could have easily been down at half-time to a Wolves side that really isn't that great, let's be honest. So Maresca's identity and his teams have looked really defensively weak at times. Leicester coming up, conceded a lot of goals and will concede goals in clumps. So I still want to see a better performance defensively from Chelsea, because coming against a Palace side and Oliver Glasner, who are operate so well and play some great football. If you're slightly off it, they can really get at you. So I feel like for Chelsea, got to shore up a little bit more defensively. But I still like what they did going forward. Nottingham Madueke for me, despite what people think about him, I still think he's a really great player. And I feel like the best Chelsea sides have Palmer and Madueke together. I think Nicholas Jackson was fantastic last time out versus Wolves. Just getting on the score sheet, pressuring hard up the pitch, being involved in the link-up play. I still think he's a really valuable part of this Chelsea side as well. The key is to play Palmer down the middle. You saw the impact he made. 3 assists, a goal, involved in everything good for the club. Caicedo, really, really solid. Probably one of the better players in terms of trying to stop the transitional play against Wolves in the middle of the park. Still not overly impressed with Enzo Fernandez. I think Christopher Nkunku could make an impact where he starts on the left. I think Mudryk has to be dropped. Does João Felix start on the left? Or do they go with Christopher Nkunku on the left? It's a big question, but I can see that position being changed. But it's really dangerous. It's dynamic in the final third. And with Palmer at the heart of the Chelsea attack, there's not many clubs that can stop this side because there's so much talent, so much pace, so much trickery in that final third there. It's going to be really, really hard for a Palace side that have got a lot of moving pieces at the back. Obviously, Anderson's gone. Looks like Gahi might end up staying. Hopefully for Palace he does, alongside Chatty Riyad and Chris Richards. It's going to be a really important game for those three at the back, the 3 centre halves. I think a big game for the wide players. Munoz out there alongside Tyreek Mitchell. Can you cover off defensively, prevent Chelsea's pace in the flanks? But equally, can you get forward and get at this very vulnerable Chelsea back line? I think Mateta, Kamada, alongside Eza, if there's any half chance, these guys will click and they'll start zipping at the ball around in the final third. I think for Palace, just be compact, keeping your shape. Then when you get the ball, go and play. Do what you do best and Oliver Glazer. Keep attacking the side. I think Chelsea are vulnerable. So if you get an early goal, there's something you can hold on to. I think it's not out of the realms of reality that they can actually get something from this game here. With that being said, they're still back in Chelsea and they've got a lot of talent, a lot of confidence from that last game there at home as well. I'm backing them in. 3-1. I've seen them winning. I think Palace will really make a real fist this game here, but just out of luck a little bit at the moment and really lacking that clinical edge in the final third. So as such, Chelsea winning this one 3-1 for me. Another mammoth European competitive affair here. Newcastle and Tottenham face off on Sunday as well. 2 teams that you'd think would be competing with similar sort of positions. Newcastle, however, started the season off really, really poorly. They've still got 4 points though, which is a real bonus for the club. The 1-0 win versus Southampton, obviously the red card hurts them there, but they didn't play great football. They lacked a lot of ability to create chance in the final third, and those front 3 look really quiet. Similar sort of story versus Bournemouth. Got lucky to escape with a point. I still think that Tango Ouattara goal should have stood, but they get away with it. And I think for a good 20 minutes, they got a point. That's basically how the games had looked to me. They started the game okay, they had a good period just after the hour mark, and they ended up getting a goal from it. Anthony Gordon, when he got on the ball, looked fantastic. I think Harvey Barnes looked fantastic as well when he was playing. I think you've got to go with those 2 on the flanks, Barnes on the left and Gordon on the right. And we've got to see more of Isak. He is so impactful this side. He's so important to the assists and goals. And when Newcastle are flying, he's flying. So I want to see more from him. And, it's really harsh, but I want to see more from Bruno Guimaraes as well. A solid game, actually solid first 2 games of the season, but we needed him to lift because Newcastle need a lift right now. And at home, they've got to start fast, got to start at the opposition, because if you give a chance for Tottenham to build into the game and and allow them to settle in this really hostile environment, they will go and piece you apart. Tottenham right now are playing with all the confidence, they're attacking football, which the Ange side plays with. I mean, know how good they are at the start of the season. They've got fresh legs, they can really continue to get at sides and play with the high energy, play with the high press, and play with that freedom. So I think for Newcastle, start the game fast. With Tonali starting as well, it'd be a big addition for them as well. But Bruno, Tonali, Joe Linton, the likes, get at the opposition early, get at Tottenham and make them uncomfortable. Get that Newcastle crowd riding behind you and take your chances. I think for Tottenham as well, continue to play a solid football, try and endure that pressure there. I think a big game needs to be had from Basuma, Van der Ven, and Romero, that sort of centre defence in many regards. Basuma, the deepest line midfielder, in front of those 2 fantastic centre halves. If they can weather the storm and deal with the chance that Newcastle will inevitably get in this game, it'll go a long way for Tottenham winning it, because the longer they stay in it, the more the opportunity they get for the likes of Maddison, Son, Kulusevski, the likes in the final third, these sort of players, these dangerous players to go and get a goal, because it's got goals written all over this game. Tottenham always seem to find the back of the net, and they've been much better defensive to start the season off as well, so looking better at both ends of the park. With that being said, I really back them in at the moment. I really like the football they're playing. despite not having a central striker in Solanke, they're doing a great job. I've got them win this game 3-0. It might sound ridiculous away from home at Newcastle, but I think Newcastle are still a 4, 5 out of 10 at best, and Tottenham are sort of 7, 8 out of 10 right now in their performances. So I've got them win this game for me quite comfortably, 3-0. That brings us to our final game of the weekend, the North West Derby, Manchester United taking on Liverpool. The Ball Classico, Arne Slot versus Erik ten Hag. And it's going to be a really, really intriguing battle here. Man United have started the season off hit and miss. Good moments in games and poor moments, but still lacking that identity and incisiveness and creativity and spark in the final third. Those are the words I sort of think of when I think of Manchester United right now. Mason Mount has to go for me. You got to get Joshua Zirkzee in the side, Bruno Fernandes back in the number 10, and you got to bench Rashford for Alejandro Garnacho. I've called for now 2-3 weeks in a row. Will Erik ten Hag finally adapt and change? Because when Zirkzee comes on, when Alejandro Garnacho comes on, things happen for Manchester United in the final third. And you've got to have things happening earlier in the game rather than late on in the game when you have the opportunity to be stretched and make mistakes and concede late goals like we saw versus Brighton. Because the first half was okay for United, a lot of possession, but a lot of sideways possession, lack of real creativity, lack of real ability to play through the lines and deal with the high line that Brighton had. If anything, United would have liked that to run in behind, spin in behind and get in behind defenders, but really lacked the ability to make the smart, timed runs to exploit that high line. I feel like in this game you need those smart players on the ball more often than not. So Kobbie Mainoo, Bruno Fernandes, Nasu Mazraoui as well. These are the players that are smart on the ball, can break through the lines and can limit Liverpool, the pressure that Liverpool put on them to throw them off. They're players that are comfortable on the ball, can deal with the press, can get past players and can create those passes to split apart defences. So for United, can these type of players get on the ball? Will Erik ten Hag make the right changes to make a more balanced Manchester United side? Because right now defensively, despite there being a few mistakes to the Brighton goal, it's looking like a really solid United defensive performance and balance in terms of that side of the park. But going forward is where the lack of creativity and incisiveness has hurt the club. You look at Liverpool, other way, they're killing it right now. 2 clinical results start the season off. Goals galore. It feels like it's going to come. Despite not having that many scored this season, it feels like there's a truckload of chances and a lot of opportunity. And Arne Slot's made a real emphasis of playing down the middle. Dominic Szoboszlai and Gravenberch start the season off have been fantastic. They've controlled games. They've played with great one-touch football. Andy Robertson and Trent Alexander-Arnold are not as important anymore for the system. It's more the central players. And as such, they're piecing apart sides. And we know how important midfield battles are in the Premier League. But with how orientated Liverpool are to the middle of the park, this game is going to be massive. Who can win this midfield battle? Because if Liverpool are allowed to play at will down the middle with their one-touch of the football, they'll piece apart Man United and put 3 or 4 past the side. I look at the likes of Diaz and Mo Salah as well. Obviously, Diaz had a fantastic start of the season, and we know Mo Salah loves these set of games versus Man United. He's made it his want to continue to score against United, and I feel like if United can try and keep these type of players quiet and can limit Liverpool's control in the centre of the park, it'll be a more competitive game. But I think Arne Slot has got this side firing. He's got this side clicking. I can see them winning this game in the end quite comfortably. I've got Liverpool winning this game 2-0. I think Ten Hag's still got a lot of to work to with this United side, and a lot more has to be done with the attacking options and the attacking play in the final third. I think Liverpool will be solid enough defensively. They'll dominate the middle of the park and they'll pass the way around Manchester United. So as such, I say Liverpool winning it 2-0. With that being said, ladies and gents, that brings my predictions for match week 3 to an end. A bit of a longer video, a lot to talk about and a lot of really interesting games. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. What is your most interesting game to come from the weekend? What are your predictions and what are your thoughts on my predictions? I've been bold yet again. Please let me know. Hammer me in the comment section down below if you think I'm wrong. If you think I'm right, please back me in. I'd take any support. That is much appreciated. And also, if you're still here, thank you for all the new viewers on these videos. These ones smash it, to be honest, on the channel right now. They're killing it. Thanks to those who've carried over from the Euros and from last season. The support is much appreciated. So the prediction videos will keep coming every single week. With that being said, I hope you enjoyed the video, guys. If you did, smash a like on it, subscribe to the Players Zone channel, and press that post notification bell so you know when we upload our videos and podcasts here on the channel. And have a great rest of your day, guys. Enjoy the upcoming football action. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you guys on the video very, very soon. Till next time, guys. See you later.